October 17th, 2023 at 12:41. We are here at Gardena, California at the
Gina Bershneider Inc.
factory. Present is Brian Tully with Massachusetts State Police.
Nelson Deagle Vale, special.
And Natalie Bershneider-Wiweke, alumni of Bentley University.
Great. And Natalie, you understand that you're talking to us here on this recording after receiving a proffer letter from Ken Mello.
Yes.
Indicating that if you are truthful and honest here in this conversation, you would get an immunity letter to follow.
Yes.
Okay, great. So why don't we start from the beginning? And
Okay.
I know that we've already spoken, but for the purpose of the recording and for Nelson, kind of what's your relationship with Karen Read? Where was it in the past?
So we went to Bentley College. It was college when we went from 1998, and I went from 1998 to 2002, and Karen graduated in 2001, a year early, because she was very smart and very studious and got all her credits early, but then she stayed at Bentley and got her master's, I guess, in finance. I was not friends with her per se. Like we didn't really know each other on campus, but we knew of each other because we hung out with the same sorority sisters, even though we were both not in the same sorority, and we went to the same frat parties. And that was it. And then of course I would see her at the library. She studied a lot. She was at the library a lot. And then when everything came about in February of 2022, and some friends from college were texting me like, oh my God, did you read this? And when I read it, I was like, oh my God, poor thing. Like, this is an accident. Like, she was drunk and hit him. So I reached out to her on Facebook. I would say, I don't know the exact date, if it was March, April, or May of 2022. But I reached out to her, and I don't have that message saved. I don't have that message saved, but I wrote to her something along the lines of, don't blame yourself, don't beat yourself up, mistakes happen, forgive yourself, And then she wrote back something along the lines like, oh my God, Nat, can we talk? So we spoke on the phone. I gave her my number, and we spoke on the phone, and she said, this was a setup. I didn't do this. And she told me that, that morning she was so confused. Like, could I have hit him? Like, did I maybe clip him? Was he running after my car? And did I hit him without knowing? But then eventually she told me that a fellow by the name of Scanlon came into Yanetti's office like a few days after she was arrested and was like, she didn't hit anybody. A fight broke out in that house. And so from there, the pieces started coming together from her private investigators. And I think because I'm so far away in Los Angeles, I was kind of like her diary. So I would say 30% of our relationship was about her case, and the other 70% was friendly stuff. Like, she would paint her guest room and say, what do you like this wall color? Or do you like this side table? Or I would cook dinner and send her pictures of what I just cooked. Or she would do the same, and then she'd say, oh, my parents are over for dinner. And she would take a picture of her parents and say, like, aren't my parents adorable, and send it to me.
And how were you communicating at this point?
I'm pretty sure it was on Signal. I never communicated with her on regular text.
And why Signal?
I don't know. I didn't question that. But
that came from Karen.
Yes, I didn't even know what Signal was. And she would call it the Funky Fresh app. Or sometimes she would text me on regular text and say, hey, you want to jump on the Funky Fresh app? And then she would send me stuff like that. And then other innocent things like I have these indoor fig trees. They're elephant ear trees, they're called. And I would do before and after photos where my tree would be dusty. I would take a before photo and then I would spray it and I would wipe down all the leaves and I would trim any of like the dead leaves. And then I would send her after photos. So a lot of our friendship was like that. And then she got upset with me once because in the beginning, I didn't know who was who. There were so many names and like, I really didn't know who was who, but I noticed that there was a woman who we all know now by the name of Elizabeth Proctor. And she would always do laughing emojis on all of the news, the Boston news sites. And this is before Aidan. This is September 2022, October 2022, November. And I would send her screenshots and I would be like, what's this lady's problem? She's so adamant, like it just doesn't stop. And Karen was like, Natalie, I wish you and my friends would stop sending me negativity stuff. You know, I have enough negativity in my life. I wish you guys would just stop. And I was like, whoa, you know. So then the next day she was like, actually, you know, all those screenshots you sent me yesterday, something along the lines of, that's actually Officer Proctor's wife. Can you email Yannetti those? So I emailed them to Yannetti as individual screenshots. And then she got back to me and she goes, Yannetti's not computer savvy. Can you actually do it in a PDF in order? So I did that. And so I put them on a PDF. So all he has to do is open up one thing and they're all there. And so that was like one time she snapped at me. And then I noticed a lady by the name of Jen Altman, and she was the only one standing up for Karen. And I would laugh with Karen because for months we had our eye on her and we would laugh. And I would say, she's like the white female Tupac Shakur, like so outspoken cheerleader. And I was like, Karen, do you know her? And she's like, I have no idea who she is. And I was like, well, she's the only one standing up for you. So like we were watching her and we would laugh and we would, you know, make jokes like that she's a little bit too brazen or whatever. And we decided, like, I said to Karen, I said, do you mind if I reach out to Altman and thank her? Because that's kind of nice of her. She doesn't even know you and she's the only one not calling you a cop killer. And she was like, by all means. So I wrote to Altman and I'm just getting my text. Mm-hmm. I said, and I got this approval from Karen. And Karen told me what to send. So I said, first, I want to thank you for standing up for Karen. She's a friend of mine since college, and this whole thing is a nightmare. And then I sent her a picture of Proctor with those 3 kids because Karen said, send that. And I wrote, this is lead detective Michael Proctor and Jennifer McCabe's children. Elizabeth Proctor is his wife. My guess is that a fight broke out in the house and it went too far. They beat him and it went too far. In the autopsy photos, it's obvious he was beat up so badly, and also the homeowner's German Shepherd chewed up his arms. Thank you for standing up for us. Then Altman writes back to me, something was very fishy, and I thought that from the beginning. I'm also glad they got this evidence, and I'm praying it works out for her. What can I do to help? And then I wrote on April 13th, this is all April 13th, I wrote, you've been incredible. I see your comments on all the news articles. You're standing up to family members of these cops who beat him up and tossed his body in the snow to freeze to death. I wish I could tell you the details, but it will slowly come out. I told Karen about you and how we need to make t-shirts that say Altman the Badass. And then I wrote, the feds are involved. So soon, the officers and nephew of the homeowner who beat him up, the officer who stood guard as they tossed his body in the snowbank in front of the house, and the sister-in-law of the homeowner who Googled how long it takes to die in the cold will be brought down. Even the homeowner's German Shepherd who chewed John's arms during the fight will be brought down. They gave the German Shepherd away. Their house is for sale in escrow or sold by now. It will all come out. This is just the beginning. And then I wrote, Karen hasn't had a moment to mourn John's death. His children, who she loved immensely, she is not allowed to contact them. This is an awful situation, but I'm thankful you've been supportive. And I did a heart and the prayer, like, thank you.
And did Jen connect you with anybody after this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you want me to keep reading or?
No,
Oh.
you're just gonna tell me what happened next. When you
Okay,
relationship
so
with
then
Jen
next,
Altman.
yeah, so then next. So then on April 17th at 3:44 p.m. Los Angeles time, see, Jennifer hid her message. She went through and hid all these messages. That's what I hate about Facebook. Okay, anyway. So Jennifer wrote to me. I actually have a screenshot of it, so that's actually good. But she wrote to me something along the lines of, hi, Natalie. I have Aidan Kearney, senior writer for Turtleboy News. He would love to write a story on the Karen Read case, something along that. But I have screenshots, so you'll have that all on the USB.
Yep.
And then I wrote, hi, Altman, thank you for putting us in touch. Let me ask Karen for her blessings. And then Clarence, who's Aidan, wrote, Jesus, I am so sorry. I would love to get the word out about this. I understand there has been some coverage, but this should be the biggest story in the news, and Karen should be immediately exonerated. So then I didn't want to reply because it's not my territory. So I called Karen and I read her this, and she said, let me talk to my brother and my best friend. And I'm assuming her best friend is John Silvera, who she went to either middle school with or elementary school with or high school with or junior high. But she's known him before college. But she said, let me ask my brother. And then she called me back and she said that they said that Aidan would be a good person to tell her side of the story because the mainstream media has painted her as a cop killer, and they're not giving like Brian Albert's name, the homeowner's name, and all the other facts that she wants out. So then she said, send this picture, and it was this picture of court that was on the Boston Globe.
Mm-hmm.
And she circled Jen McCabe's face. And I wrote, Jen McCabe is top left brunette in jeans jacket. And then I wrote, Altman, I'll call you on my way home. And then Aidan writes, what is this from? And then I replied, Boston Globe. And he wrote, thank you. And then I wrote, the very first hearing. When I get home, I'll find photos on their Facebooks. Just wait, guys. Major news coming very soon. And Aidan wrote, I'd be very happy to break this. I run Turtleboy Daily News. And then Karen sends me stuff from a site called vsco.com. And one is like a big family photo of all of the, this looks like the McCabes, and this looks like the Alberts together. And then Karen tells me to write, because I didn't know who all these people were. And she wrote, Jen McCabe, second from right, Brian Albert, back row, dark hoodie. And then Clarence wrote, obviously Clarence is Aidan, but it keeps saying Clarence on my phone. Obviously, Jennifer McCabe did not kill him on her own. And it sounds like O'Keefe and Albert barely knew each other. And then I wrote, they didn't know each other. McCabe and O'Keefe are good friends. And then Aidan wrote, what would the motive be? He was there 15 minutes before he died. And then they got the dog to bite him, ? And I wrote, Clarence, give me your cell number. And then he gives me the 413-262-6909. And then I replied, I'll text you the latest court motion from April 12th.
And where is that messaging? Is that
This is all on Facebook Messenger.
Facebook Messenger.
Because this is when I first met them. This was all April 17th, the day before, I guess, he did his first blog, which I understand is the 18th or 19th.
And it's a three-way conversation with you, Karen, and Kearney?
Karen is not on it.
Okay.
Karen is on Signal, or Karen's calling me.
Got it.
And I would read Karen, like on speakerphone, I would read what they're saying, and then she would say,
But Karen was directing you.
yes, because what do I know? All I know is about sofas, like I don't, and there were so many names involved that I didn't know who. I kept thinking Michael Proctor was the homeowner, and she would always correct me and say like, no, he's the worst one of them all, and so it was very confusing for me. And I think I didn't grasp who everybody was until probably April or May or March of 2023. So it took me a long time to get who all these people were.
And these photos that you're sharing with Turtleboy, where were they coming from?
From Karen.
She was in real time, she was sending them to you?
Yes.
Conversation?
Yes. So, and I never went out, I never stepped out of bounds and took it upon myself to send stuff because I didn't want to jeopardize anything for her. So everything came from her like, okay, send this, send that. This motion is now public. He can now use this motion on his blog, but pay attention to, this page, this paragraph, stuff like that.
And this arrangement of her telling you to send stuff to Turtleboy, how long did that happen? Or did that continue after April 17th?
Yeah, so then that continued from about April 17th. And then about the end of May, they started getting in an argument between me. And I'm copying, pasting. And Turtle calls me and texts me and says, you girls are you guys are jerking me around. I don't like being jerked around like this. And Karen, I'm gonna have Aidan call me on Signal. Excuse my language. I didn't mean to say the F word. And she said, have him call me on Signal. So I gave it to Turtle, her phone number. I said, call her on Signal. I said, I'm gonna go give my little girl a bath. I go in the bathtub with my little girl. We get out, I would say about 45 minutes later, we put our PJs on. And I come back to my phone and I have all these missed calls and missed text messages. And I call Aidan. I said, what happened? He goes, you girls, you're playing games with me. You're jerking me around. I'm the one that brought this story out. And, I'm waiting by the phone and Karen doesn't even call me. So I call Karen. I said, Karen, why didn't you call him? And she goes, Natalie, I'm so scared. I said, why are you scared? And she goes, I don't know. I'm just so scared. I said, Karen, he proved himself by now. He's done blogs. Like, he's been so loyal the past month. Like, you owe it to him now to just talk to him. So then she was like, fine. So she summons the courage to call him. And so she called him. And ever since then, they just pushed me out of the picture and were communicating directly.
And how do you know that?
Because they stopped including me and stuff.
How do you know they're communicating without you? Did anyone tell
That's
you
just
that,
me putting 1 + 1 = 2.
Got it.
And also She stopped texting me every day like she used to. He was a little bit better about keeping me in the loop. Like when he recorded like the Scanlon tape, he sent me that private YouTube link. I'm trying to tell you everything in order because I tend to jump around and then I forget other stuff I wanted to tell you. So I told Aidan, I only had a relationship with Aidan, April 17th until about June 15th, around there. And then off and on, like then I was in Europe and I would text him congratulations because he mentioned something about Netflix, But anyway, on June 15th, I think. Okay. In April at some point, April or June at some point, I told Aidan, I said, Aidan, one day not Hollywood's going to knock on your door. I said, but in the meantime, you got to cut out the words because, and you got to chill with this love for Trump, because if you want to tango with Hollywood and your dream is to be famous and have a documentary. And I said, maybe it would be a good idea to do a show and say like, hey, guys, I was wrong with my vocabulary. Let me change my ways and turn a new leaf. And he didn't listen to me. So then I was driving home from work. It was like around 5:00 my time, 5:30, whatever. And Aidan calls me and he goes, Natalie, you were right. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, Hollywood called me. And he goes, I'm going to sign with them. And I said, but this is the first offer. Why would you wait for some more offers? I said, this is just the beginning. You're going to get so many offers. And he goes, well, as a thank you, I want to sign with the first person because I think that's really nice. I said, Aidan, that's like sleeping with someone on the first date. You don't do that. Just slow your roll. And so I called Karen, and Karen was like, oh gosh, Nat, did you hear about Aidan in the documentary? This really makes me nervous. I haven't even gone to trial yet. I haven't even been exonerated. Why is he thinking about a documentary? And I said, I know. I told him that I think he needs to slow his roll and just wait till things play out. With Scott Peterson, there isn't just one Scott Peterson documentary. There's 8 of them. And there's from different viewpoints, from the Rocha family, from his sister-in-law, from just the general media. So Karen sounded really nervous. And she was like, you know what, Natalie, I had a really bad day. I need to unplug. Let's talk about this tomorrow. But in the back of my mind, I could tell she was really worried. So I called Aidan. I said, Aidan, do me a favor. Send me a screenshot of the email. I just want to make sure it's not some D-list or C-list producer or documentary person. So he sent me the screenshot of the email. And what I did is I cropped it just down to the signature. And I sent it to my client who's won 6 to 8 Emmys because she's a director. She's a pilot director. And I texted it to her and I said, hey, do you know these people? And an hour later, she texts me back and she's like, oh my God, how the universe works. 2 of my favorite people, Natalie and Brian, 2 of my favorite people naturally collide. Oh, I won 2 Emmys with him on these shows, blah, 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 blah. They're the best people. They're the nicest people. They're great to work with. So I called Aidan. I said, Aidan, you're in luck. These people are actually legit and they're actually really nice, good people. So then I text Karen. But when you text after every sentence, you hit return. And so I texted Karen hey, all is good. All is good. These people are legit. I sent it to my client. You guys have nothing to worry about. So then the next morning I wake up to a scathing text from Karen saying that I inserted myself into the documentary and something along the lines of that my only interest was to be in a documentary, which is not true. I had no interest. And I really did this for Aidan because I kind of felt bad for him because I felt like he was a struggling blogger. He has 2 kids. He lives, so to, for lack of a better saying, paycheck to paycheck. And I thought, anyway, so so that's why I vetted that. And Karen took it the wrong way. And then after that, Karen never called me, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to hear my side of the story. So I said to Aidan, I told Aidan, I said, Karen just like lost her shit. Like what, like I get she's under a lot of pressure, but come on, over that. So in the meantime, my client gives the producer my name and he texts me and he said, I would love to meet with you. Can you come to Sony Studios and meet me? And I said, no, but you can come to my factory. So he came and met with me and he told me that this wasn't a documentary about Aidan. It was a documentary that they want to do about this popularity about armchair detectives. And he gave me the example about that young couple that traveled cross country in a trailer and taped it. And it ended up that the boyfriend strangled her. I her name,
Gabby Patino.
Mm-hmm. And that's right. And he said that it wasn't the FBI or the feds or the authorities that solved the case. It was the armchair detectives. So this guy, Brian, wanted to do a documentary on all the armchair detectives. But Aidan, being such an egomaniac, made it like, no, they want to do a documentary on me. So then when the fellow was here, he asked if I would be interested in being part of the documentary since I'm like the goose that laid the golden egg. And I said, absolutely not. I want no part of a documentary. I don't want to be involved with like any kind of case, like no way. I said, but I do have a question. I said, how do we go about getting Aidan an agent, an entertainment agent, and an entertainment lawyer? And he giggled and he goes, Aidan told me he has an attorney. And I said, yeah, but that's probably just some like Massachusetts attorney that doesn't know entertainment because you need an entertainment attorney here in Hollywood. I said, what about an agent? And he goes, Natalie, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know any agent that would take him on. And then he explained to me that the way these documentaries work is they get the rights to his blogs for 18 months, which means that he cannot then sign and do another documentary. He can't do 3 documentaries within 18 months. He would not get paid, but what it is it'll boost his popularity and there'll be about 8 million viewers. And it wasn't Netflix. What they do is they go to HBO, they go to Hulu, they go to Amazon Prime, Netflix, anything else that's whatever. And they go with the pilot of the documentary or with an intro, whatever it is, or a trailer of it. And then the highest bidder is the one who takes it. Okay. So then I left it at that. And I didn't hurt Aidan's feelings and tell him that you're not going to get an agent because no one. And I never Googled him too, which is another big mistake. I never thought to Google him. And if I did Google him, I would have never gotten involved because of just the filthy stuff about him on there.
Turtleboy is him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so then after this, I was like, you know what? I started getting sick because I was upset that Karen still never reached out to me when I thought I was a good friend and I thought we were friends. And she knows that I live a very comfortable life. So what would a documentary mean to me? Like I live a very comfortable life. And for her to just so coldly throw me away, I was a little hurt. So I asked Aidan, you know, like, have you talked to Karen? Like, did you mention me? And he's like, no. And I said, well, why? And he's like, well, I don't want to get involved. Like, that's between you and her. And I was like, but can't you like try to talk to her and smooth things over and let her know that I inquired about the documentary just to make sure that you guys weren't going to bed with the wrong people? And he's like, nah, I don't want to get involved. You girls are all, you know, and you're all unreasonable and you can't talk to women and da 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 da. So I left it at that. And then
What date is this, you think?
end of June, beginning of July.
Okay.
And then I decided for my mental health, it would be best for me to leave the groups. So I left the Free Karen Read group and the Justice O'Keefe group. I left that group and then I went to Europe. I went to Germany to visit my family with my eldest daughter, and we had jet lag major, and my 12-year-old and I would be up until like 3, 4 in the morning. And I got bored and I joined the group. And I noticed this fellow by the name of Nick Rocco. Oh, back to June. I noticed, so Erica Davis, who's Karen Ahern, as we know, you know who that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, maybe I'll tell you later. She posted in the group who is getting all the proceeds to the Karen Read t-shirts. And I commented, well, the etiquette would be that all the money goes to Karen. So Aidan does an impromptu video, and the impromptu video was dedicated to Sean on the Golf. The first half was to Sean on the Golf, because Sean on the Golf removed, because he was a moderator in the group, he removed anybody talking about the grand jury. And he called Karen and he called Aidan and he said, you guys can't ask about the grand jury. And Turtle, you can't do your blogs asking about information about the grand jury. This is highly confidential information. So Aidan did an impromptu, and that first part was dedicated to Sean on the Golf, saying, where he said something along the lines of like, hey, let me make something straight about the grand jury. Trust me, like the whole trust me part. You don't have a law degree. Trust me. It's okay to talk about the grand jury. Trust me. And then he goes, and now I want to talk about the t-shirts.
Before we go to the t-shirts, can we talk about the grand jury part?
Yeah.
So what was being posted on these sites?
I don't know, because I wasn't on.
Okay.
But I guess somebody said like, oh, my friend is on the grand jury and she said that we meet every Thursday. Something like that is what I heard from somebody.
But this is June of 2023? Or there's someone who's on the grand jury that indicted Karen?
I don't know, but they talked about grand jury. So I don't know, like very specific like that.
Okay.
And so Sean on the Golf removed it. Turtle got really mad. Karen was mad, I guess. I don't know, but I heard she was mad. And so Aidan does this impromptu. And so the first half, as I mentioned, is dedicated to Sean on the Golf. And then the second half is dedicated to Erica Humphrey Davis, Erica Davis Humphreys, who's actually Karen Ahern, and to me. And he says, and now let's get something straight about the t-shirts. All 100% of the t-shirts go to me. This is my livelihood. This is how I get paid. And you, is what he said. And I can send you the impromptu. I think I may even sent it to you. So the first was Karen, and then I'm the snotty who mentioned etiquette, that the etiquette would be. And he goes, and the snotty blocked me because I blocked him a long time ago. And then I blocked Jennifer Altman because I know she's been a turtle writer for like 5 years. And so after this impromptu, I got scared because I thought that they were going to pull photos of my kids and do like a YouTube thing about me and poke fun at my weight or whatever. I don't know. I didn't want to be one of his ratchets. But everybody was like, not everybody. I say everybody like I was talking to a bunch of people. I was only talking to like 5 to 8 people, if you include Aidan and Karen. So in the back of my mind, I was upset with Aidan, and I thought, how dare he? He could have called me and said, Natalie, why do you write that? Why do you write that about the t-shirts? And so then Sean on the golf told me he called me and he's like, did you see the impromptu about us? And I was like, no. And he's like, go on right now. And so I listen, and then I hear the t-shirts part, and I was like, wait a minute, what? So then I go in the group and I look, and I see the little turtle in the R or the A of Read. And I didn't even notice that it had something to do with turtle. So I would have thought that the etiquette thing to do would have been to just call me and been like, Natalie, why do you write that? But then instead he does this like outlandish post, he doesn't say my name. So in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm going to get this guy back one day. I just don't know how. But I'm not a vindictive person where I'm going to set up a fake account and smear or egg their house or whatever, however people retaliate. So my way of getting him back was smart. So I was in Germany with my daughter, and we had jet lag for basically the whole trip. And I noticed that Nick Rocco was doing a fundraiser for these. He was raising money to hire the trucks going up and down in front of the courthouse. And I noticed, and then Nick said, oh, these are all the slides. And I noticed that Turtle's logo was on every single slide. And I've done fundraising for the interior design community, and I know that logo placement is very valuable. So I reached out to him and to Nick Rocco, and I said, hey, Nick, great job on the fundraising. But by the way, is Turtle paying for the logo placement? And I thought, I'm going to get him back this way. So I told him, I said, the business and savvy way to do it is, yes, offer Turtle to buy logo placement at $1,000 per logo. But in the meantime, in the group, hit up CPAs, bakeries, barber shops, auto mechanics, auto body places. So I was giving him like business advice. And he was like, oh, that's a great idea. So he removed those 4 slides, and he removed the logo. And then he posted, hey, anyone want to put their logos up? We're going to put them up for sale for $500. And I told Nick, like, why did you undersell it? Like, you got to be aggressive in business, and you could have sold them. But anyway, within 2 or 4 hours, all logo placements were sold. And I figured I won the smart way. I got Turtle's logo off. And I did it without smearing him or talking about his whatever, however they smear him. I'm not low like that. And then I formed not a bond, not a relationship, but I kind of coached Rocco on how to fundraise. And I told him, I said, you get sponsors to buy the bracelets, and you give those sponsors credit, and then you sell the bracelets for $10 a pop. He wanted to just somebody buy the bracelets or nobody buy the bracelets. I don't know what his thought was. And I told him too, and then you get sponsors for postage also, and you give those businesses credit, and then they use that as a marketing expense, especially with the bus going up and down with the 4 slides, they can use that as a marketing expense. And he was like, oh, that's a great idea, whoop-de-whoop. So anyways, I was like, great, I got them back. And then where I messed up, and I admit this. This is where I messed up. Nick did not understand how Karen knew he got beat up in the house. He just did not get it. And I tried to explain it. And I was like, you know what, forget it. So I sent him the link to the Scanlon tape. And that was my fault. I backstabbed Aidan, but at this point, I wasn't really fond of him. And I feel bad for doing that. That was a wrong move. And I admit that was a wrong move. And I also told Nick in a text, in a thing, that another thing that made me uncomfortable about Aidan is that him being a married man with 2 kids and a daughter, and me being a married woman, and me being friends with Karen, and me being married with 2 daughters, I found it very odd that he would tell me that when this is all said and done, that Karen owes him a job. And I wrote that to Nick. So like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had COVID, and I get an alert that Turtleboy's live. And I look, and it's the Scanlon tape. And I was like, there's no way he's sharing this. He got hacked. And I guess he pushed, from what I hear from then Sean on the Gulf and Jay Robert were the only 2 people I was keeping in touch with at this point. I was only keeping in touch with 2 people at this point, that Turtle hit the wrong button on YouTube and published that by mistake for 13 minutes. And what did Rocco do? He right away sends screenshots to Aidan about not only me sending the Scanlon tape, but about my comment that he's a pig for saying that Karen owes him a. And then Aidan says to me, you're the reason why I'll never trust anybody again. And I didn't even reply because I figured he's not a reasonable person. And I've tried to plead with him about things, and he has no concept of friendship or loyalty or just being a good human being. So I didn't even reply. And then I did reply. I actually did say, like, hey, I know you're mad at me, but I'm sure I wanted to keep it civil because I didn't want to be a ratchet. So I was like, well, I'll still be cheering from you from afar, something like that. I left it like very like neutral, like, let's not make this war, because I'm not doing war.
So what's the concern about the Scanlon tape? Did Turtleboy share any concerns about the existence of that video?
Well, because he recorded it without Scanlon knowing.
How do you know that?
Because he was like, oh, when he sent it to me to send to Karen, it was not known, and he'd never shared it on his blogs. And then he would, and another thing I thought was odd was with Lucky Laughlin, the plow guy, Aidan said several times that he has a photographic memory. But then I knew he recorded Scanlon, and you don't have a photographic memory like that. There's no photographic memory like that, especially verbatim like that. No, he should have prefaced it. If he were smart and savvy, he should have prefaced it like, oh, the conversation went somewhere along the lines of this. But he's like, no, I have a photographic memory, and that's just not believable. But no, the Scanlon tape was very obvious, and he sent it to me, and he either sent it directly to Karen or I sent it to her. And then he also sent it to Erica Davis, who's Karen Ahern. And she's also one of the numbers I gave you because she all this time told me she's a Boston police officer and that she doesn't want to blow her cover. I think she's a pathological liar because she's actually a security guard for a hospital. But she would go to like the Albert's homes and the house with the swimming pool. And so she's the one that took pictures of the swimming pool. So if you go on his blogs, those are all from him. But then she had a falling out with Aidan because she was like, he's so unthankful. I'm not going to send him anything anymore. Somehow her and Sean on the Gulf, who's Sean McDonough in Florida, the retired 35-year DEA agent, him and Karen Ahern, aka Erica Davis Humphreys, they started a circle where they wanted to figure out, what do these cops all owe each other? Like, what favor does Proctor owe Brian that he did all this lying and planted evidence? And there's all these other officers, like, so they were trying to find out who owes who what favors. And so McDonough, I also think, exaggerates and tries to make himself more significant and powerful than he is. But that was what they were working on with these 5 other police officers in Canton, retired FBI agents, or I don't know what the terminology was, but there was a think tank amongst them to figure out what these cops have on each other. And that's why they all covered up for each other and planted evidence and purposely misspelled names in documents and stuff like that.
When was the last time you talked to Karen?
That night when it must have been June 15th, June 13th.
Okay. When was the last time you talked to Aidan?
Well, when he got mad at me when I had COVID, like September 18th, but I never spoke to him. But, when I was in Germany, he posted that he's signing on with people with Netflix. So I was genuinely, out of everybody, I'm scared of him the most, because I don't want him to like smear my name and make me a ratchet, even though I pay my bills. I don't have debt. I didn't have kids before 30. I'm married, like there's nothing wrong. I have no criminal record, nothing. There's nothing you can write about me. I'm not a drug addict. I don't do drugs. I don't abuse alcohol. I live a very clean, fine life. So I was scared of him. And so sometimes I would message him to, like, for lack of a better word, kiss his ass. I don't know. So when I was in Germany, I wrote to him something like Mazel Tov about Netflix. And I wrote something about, like, is it the Wahlberg brothers? And he said, I can't say. And either while I was in Germany or when I got back from Germany, we texted again, or we spoke. And he told me that it's the brothers that did the Netflix show, The Tinder Swindler. And it's a show about a guy who would borrow like $50,000 from one woman to rent private jets and take a bunch of other people and try to live this like rich life, and then scam, and then keep telling this woman, I'm going to pay you back your money, and then get $75,000 from her and then pay her like crazy. So then when I was thinking about it, like Aidan, in Aidan's mind, he thinks that this documentary is going to be like, he's this investigative journalist, like gets down dirty, finds out the information. But really, Tinder Swindler, The Tiger King, these documentaries are about these mentally insane people. And so I don't think he grasps that this isn't going to be like a complimentary, like, hey, go Aidan, great job. This is going to be like a mockery of him, like he's out of his mind. So that's that. And then, on that tweet the other day, the lady said I contacted Netflix. I never contacted them. Actually, Sony contacted me, but Aidan ended up not going with Sony. So a lot of that's a lie. And that lien that they said about that I have a $31,000 lien, that's not true. That's from 2011 when my husband inherited a $3 million property from his late mother who died of cancer. She died, took like 2 years for her to die from cancer. And so when my husband inherited that property in 2000, she died in 2009. In 2011, we get a letter from the mail and the IRS that him as the heir, we have to pay her back taxes, and it was $31,000, and we paid it off within 16 months. So to make it like I am like this like deadbeat who doesn't pay my bills, I don't have any credit card debt, and to say like I work here for nepotism. You met my mom. If I wasn't good, she'd throw me out here, and she wouldn't give me shareholders. And she also made it that in the will, I get 100% of the business and my brother gets none of the business. And my brother was fine with that because he says, I deserve it and I done a good job. So I was very, I realized what I'm dealing with, this nastiness, and I'm scared.
Going back to when there was this arrangement that Karen would send you things, then you would send them to Aidan. What was Karen's motivation? Did you get a sense of
To
that?
get her side of the story out, because she felt like the mainstream media was making it that she was a cop killer. And she was like, I'm not a cop killer. A fight broke out in that house. And now they're trying to protect Colin, who's the neighborhood bully, who would always start crap with John and would drive really fast in the neighborhood. And John would tell him, don't speed, there's kids playing on the street. And when they would leave town, I guess, I don't have Ring, but I guess with Ring, it senses when there's movement on your property and it alerts your phone. So they would be on vacation and then they would see that this is what she told me, that Chris Albert and his son Colin would be on lawn chairs on their grass drinking beers and then leave the beer cans on the lawn. So so that's what she told me. So
And as Aidan was confronting people in public, going to the businesses, did you ever talk to her about kind of his conduct out of the rolling rally?
So I wasn't involved anymore at that point. So I pulled out June 15th. So the rolling rally and all that stuff happened after. But when he first started calling people on the shows, she did tell me that made her very uncomfortable. And she was like, gosh, I wish he wouldn't call the family members. But she was like, I can't tell him what to do. And also when he made mistakes in his journalism, she's like, we can't correct him. He's a journalist. He has to come up with his own hypotheses and stuff like that.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Alan Jackson or David Yannetti?
No, I've only emailed David Yannetti twice. I emailed him the Elizabeth Proctor thing, and then I emailed him the Paul O'Keefe conversation between Aidan and Paul O'Keefe.
What was the purposes of the Paul O'Keefe conversation?
I don't know. She just asked if I could do it.
Okay.
But she swears that she was framed. And, it happened so organically and naturally. It's like, how could I not believe her? Especially when she would break down and cry. Like when all that rumor came up about the wood floor being dug up in the basement, she felt so grossed out. She said, Natalie, I have to get off the phone and take a hot shower. And then she called me back and she said, I just blasted my music, took a hot shower, and I just went in the corner and started crying. But she's never cried to me. And I always tell her, like, gosh, you're so strong. Because you know me, I'm a crybaby. And I tell her, like, gosh, you're so strong. And she's like, I have no other choice. I'm fighting for my life. But I have to say, like, I do miss our friendship. I genuinely liked her. Yes, I have not seen her in 20 years. But we had so much fun reminiscing about college. And we would watch this Netflix show together, Tell Me Lies, which is about freshman college year, like love drama, and it reminded us of Bentley College. And so we would watch an episode and then we would like recap and talk about that episode and like be like, oh my God, can't wait for the next episode to come on. Stuff like that. So it wasn't just always about her case, and there was a friendship there. And that's, I think, what hurt me. Here's what I found. That's what hurt me when she didn't give me a chance to explain my innocent inquiry about the documentary. Another thing is in the very beginning, I told her that when you Google, this is before Aidan, this is 2022, when you Google Karen Read, nothing came up. And I told her, you need to tell the news outlets that when they post their articles, you can choose like 10 hashtags. It might be more, but you can choose 10 hashtags. Tell them to use Karen Read as a hashtag so that when we Google your name, it comes up. Another thing I noticed is they kept referring to her as the ex-girlfriend. And I said, you need to let the news outlets know not to call you the ex-girlfriend because you weren't. And she was like, oh my God, Nat, why am I spending $3,000 a month on a PR person? You should just do my PR. You're so good at this stuff. You know this, like, on your own. I'm going to let go of my PR person. So from that point, I kind of looked at my role as her PR person, weirdly enough. And so I think that when Aidan told me about the documentary guy, I kind of wanted to protect her and protect him and make sure that this was legit.
Nelson, any questions?
Did Aidan ever, obviously after you gained his trust, did he ever have you email anybody that we haven't brought up yet?
No. Like email, like.
Just any documents, anything, or contact somebody on his behalf?
Oh, like, so he would get emails from like people saying like, rumor has it that X, Y, and Z. And then he would say, can you send this to Karen and tell me if this is true?
Okay.
And then Karen would say, this is not true. Like that Brian Albert video with the foot. And Karen said, unequivocally, or however you say it in English, that's not Brian Albert. He always wears a skull cap type of thing.
Anybody else that comes to mind?
Ashley Bell sent Aidan a text with pictures of Yuri on her Ring camera. And then Aidan sent me a screenshot where he sent that to Yannetti and I sent that to you.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like that. And Aidan would send me stuff to kind of keep me in the loop, but then by May I was kind of pushed away and I kind of sensed like, okay, they're now in touch. They don't need me anymore.
Did Karen ever send you grand jury minutes or motions to send to Aidan?
Only if they were already public. She was very careful about that. She was very, very careful. And she would always say, let me double check with Yannetti to make sure they're public. But never beforehand. She was very careful about that. And the only time I think she messed up was releasing the color autopsy photos. And for some reason, I thought I sent those to Aidan. But when I looked through my text messages with him, I sat down on Friday in my car and I was like, you know what? I'm going to finally revisit this. And I scrolled all the way up to the top. And I got a Jamba Juice. I sat in my car and I read everything. And when I was done, I was like, thank you, Jesus. I did not send the autopsy photos. I thought that maybe I sent those. But that's because I had them saved. But I think John Silvera, because he's on some of the emails with me, I was only sent like 3 emails or 4 emails, and he was on like 1 or 2 of them. And I know that they're very close, and I know that he was her biggest donor because he donated $15K. So I know that, and then she also said to me sometimes like, Natalie, if this is too much for you, I can have John S. take over, if you need a break. And I was like, no, this is what friends are for. Don't sweat it. It's not a big deal. I'm just copy and pasting. The kids are asleep, so, and that was pretty much it. And that was pretty much my involvement. And then stupid me, I got involved with Sean on the golf. And then also with Scanlon, the reason why you're going to get all these screenshots is Karen and I went on Scanlon's Facebook page before Aidan. Okay, so we went on Scanlon's Facebook page and we did screenshots of every single photo he had and kept them because we knew that Karen was going to have Erica Davis go on the chat of Aidan's YouTube channel and just write, who's Stephen Scanlon? And that's why when you see, if you've seen the Scanlon tape, how my name pops up, it's because Aidan texts me something like, who wrote Stephen Scanlon on my text? And then I said, Erica Davis. And then it was because Karen told me, hey, can you text Erica Davis and tell her to just write, who is Stephen Scanlon? Because she wanted to stir the pot. And then Aidan called Stephen and recorded it. And then Aidan was like, oh my gosh, look what I have. And he set it as a private link. So you could only watch that. You couldn't go on his page and find it. It was a very private link.
So run that through me again, how Aidan became aware of Scanlon. It was the first time that he heard of it was on the comments on the YouTube Live?
No, Karen told us that that's how she put the story together because that morning she was so confused and so hungover.
Yeah, but how'd she get it? How'd she get who Scanlon was?
Because he went to Yannetti's office. And Scanlon said like this, there's something wrong with the story. They were beat up in the house. Somebody told me that he was beat up in the house.
But then Karen, knowing to put out on social media, she directed you or to ask who is this Scanlon?
To scare Scanlon.
Why would Karen want to scare Scanlon?
Hopefully have him talk. I don't know.
And what was the why beforehand capture all his pictures?
Because Karen did that, especially with that's how she was able to get all the pictures of the Alberts and the McCabe's and all those kids and show that Proctor's mom wrote to Chris Albert, you guys are my second family. So Karen is heavily on Facebook and studies Facebook like no other. And so that was a very big tool for her to realize that these folks really do know each other.
But it seems like Scanlon was important to her. So, yeah. But capturing Facebook pictures she could use against him?
I don't know.
No? Okay.
We just did it. There was no rhyme or reason or it was let's just get all his pictures, as many as we can, before he locks his page or before he deletes it. Because I guess that's what happened with McCabe and Proctor, is they ended up locking their pages or limiting it, and not making it a public page.
Okay. You had mentioned to me before that maybe Aidan had met for lunch with Jackson and Yannetti.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So Aidan really wanted to sit in the court. and he really wanted to be in the courthouse. And this was another time Karen snapped at me, and I told her, I said, Aidan wants to sit in the car, wants to sit in the courthouse. And she's like, Natalie, I can't be bothered with this. You know, I have bigger fish to fry. I have the attorneys here all week. You know, like, leave me alone about this. And I said, Karen, he's done so much for you. Like, just get him proper seating in the courthouse. Like, we owe this to him. You owe this to him. And she goes, fine, have him call John Silvera and he can go in with John Silvera. And that was another thing that I used against Aidan was I said, you know, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have gone into the courthouse. So then Karen told me that after the May 3rd court hearing that they were going to all convene at the Omni Seaport and to tell Aidan. And so I told Aidan, and Aidan's like, I feel out of place. I don't feel right. I don't fit in. I said, Aidan, play your cards right. Alan Jackson's going to be there. Like, this is how you move up in life. You know, you schmooze with the right people. You socialize with the right people. And that's how you climb up this ladder, you know? Because he was on his way home and he didn't want to go. He was too shy. And I said, Aidan, pull over. And so he's like, well, there's 2 Omni Seaports. I don't know which one it is. So I remember I was standing in the middle of the factory and I call the Omni Seaports and I figure it out or whatever. I call both of them and I asked if there was a party under Jackson, under Reed, under Yannetti. None of them could tell me. And then in the meantime, Aidan's like, I figured out which one they're at. Okay, I'm on my way. And then he thanked me and he's like, thank you so much for pushing me. I had a great time. And Jackson is like such a cool guy. And Karen's parents are so cool. And Karen is just like the nicest down to earth person. And I was like, see, you just have to have a little bit of confidence, you know. The only thing he didn't listen to me is I told him, I said, when you go to court, you can't go like cartoon character with turtle tie and lime green shirt, like maybe go in neutral colors and, you know, maybe put some moisturizer on and, you know, but he didn't listen to me. He went on that court hearing. He went with the whole getup, the sign, the tie and the green lime green shirt and a black jacket or something like that. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Anything else?
Earlier, did you ever mention, did you ever donate to Karen Read or to
I
Aidan?
did.
Okay.
I did.
How much is that?
I donated $1,000 to Karen.
Okay.
And then I donated another time of $50 to Karen. And to Aidan, I donated $300.
Okay.
I know. I should have donated it to like babies with AIDS or I know, I'm an idiot. I feel fooled. I feel duped. I feel like I'm embarrassed. It's an egg in my face. As you guys know, my parents and my husband have been very against my involvement since day one, especially my husband. When they saw that I donated money to her defense fund, it really hit the fan. But, you know, I'm not perfect and I don't claim to be. And it is what it is. And the only thing I can do is learn from it and move forward and do what I think is right. And I can't beat myself up about it and I can't be scared anymore.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. All right, we'll end the recording at 1:50.